Cookies?
No.
We have those?
I don't even have them. I was just bluffing on that one. All right.
We've got a PowerPoint. I'm waiting for my laptop to boot up. So
That's
I can
fine.
show it to you.
Yeah.
Karen, in the meantime, do you want to introduce your team to the gentleman?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure. Alright, we're Team 127, called the Whitney High School Killerwatts, from obviously our school, Whitney High School in Cerritos. And we're basically a robotics team that ranges just locally in the community, and we have students all the way from 7th to 12th grade. And then so we're just, we locally focus on robotics, and then we have teams, 3 teams in our school. They're called FLL, which stands for First Lego League, which is what we do. And then we also have a medium level robotics, which is FVC, it's actually renamed now, it's FTC, First Tech Challenge, and that actually has metal robots around this size, maybe 30 or so pounds. And then our highest level robotics is actually with, they're gigantic robots, 120 pounds, they're probably as tall as I am. And then we also compete in that, we're actually doing that this year. So out of all these teams, actually all of us have made it throughout our California state competitions, and we're going to be representing Southern California as our robotics teams in the World Festival in Georgia.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Congratulations. I'm sure you guys will do great.
They're going against teams from countries, 43 other countries like, Japan, Africa. I mean, they can, well, not, okay, South Africa, I'm sorry. Well, they connected as a region,
Yeah. Well, that sounds exciting.
That's a robot.
My grandson was in robotics club when he was in high school. And, he loved it. And he was in Redlands. He loved it. And he had gone to some competition, and I think it's that state competition you were describing.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's almost ready. Laptop's gonna take a long time to boot up.
Too much software.
Yeah, computers
At least
nowadays.
that's what they tell me, 'cause I have no idea. But when I ask our IT folks, that's what they would. Too much junk on.
So is that like a PowerPoint presentation?
yes.
Oh.
Have to excuse us.
That's
Oh,
okay.
yeah,
Sound
yeah,
good.
that's
It
right.
doesn't quite work with my laptop, so I'll have to sit over here to switch sides.
No, that's fine. Well, I can see it from there.
And also, our presentation is intended for usually an audience who doesn't know anything about the Cerritos Library. I'm sure you're already pretty familiar with it, so please excuse us if any of it's a little
Oh,
bit.
no, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this is Team 127, the Whitney Killerwatts, and here's our presentation on improving the Cerritos Library.
Now, as we all know, the Cerritos Library is much unlike a traditional library and is unique in several ways. First of all, in addition to usual books that almost every library features, it also features over 200 computers, lots of resources. It has classic architecture and quality art, as well as theme settings throughout the building. However, having all of these things also costs a lot of money and energy. According to the energy audit we obtained, the library uses approximately 609,000 kilowatt hours per year, which costs around $126,000 on the annual electricity bill. And since it's not using an independent source and it gets all its power from the City of Cerritos power grid, it's not an independent, and therefore we have no idea where the origin of this power is from. And every square feet of the 88,500 square feet library uses air conditioning.
So because the Cerritos Library is a relatively new library, they've already put energy efficient methods into place. For example, they use variable frequency drives, also known as VFDs. Usually when you turn on a motor, there's usually a high initial rush of electricity, and then it steadies out. But then variable frequency drives, they make sure there's always a steady pace or steady flow of electricity. And they use they also use energy management systems, which change the temperature in the room as needed, and they change the lighting as when needed. The sensors, for example, there's these motion sensors. If there's nobody in the room, then the lights will turn off, and then if there's a lot of people in the room, then it'll turn on.
Okay. The other ways to save energy in the library is by the library uses about 11 hours of air conditioning every day, Monday through Friday, and then since there's all that, and then
Since it's not using an independent source and it's going from the city power grid, there's no guarantee of where this is coming from. So, and we wish to find an independent alternative energy source.
Well, short term, we wish to replace the incandescent lights with fluorescent and LED lights, so then we could save more energy. In long term, we think the library should generate hydrogen, which will help fuel their fuel cells. There are 4 main types of fuel cells used for building applications. The one we suggested was the proton exchange membrane, or PEM fuel cell. This fuel cell, unlike the other fuel cells, doesn't need very high temperatures to run on. Other fuel cells need an environment that requires hundreds of degrees. This fuel cell uses hydrogen, a renewable resource, as fuel to generate electricity. The only emissions are water and heat, with no harmful emissions.
So how the PM fuel cell works is featured in this diagram here. When the hydrogen encounters
Please go ahead.
Okay, when the hydrogen encounters the anode, the hydrogen splits into protons and electrons. The protons then travel to the polymer electrolyte membrane, which electrons cannot penetrate through. Electrons are forced to go around the membrane, creating an electrical circuit. Proton and electron meet back at the cathode here, where they also react with water, forming oxygen, forming water as a waste element.
You may be wondering where the hydrogen used to power a fuel cell comes from. Using a newly developed nano-solar panel power sheet in conjunction with an electrolyzer, we are therefore able to make hydrogen from water using sunlight. The nano-solar power sheet is much cheaper and more efficient than other solar panels, and the electrolyzer breaks apart the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen can then be stored for nighttime or cloudy day usage. This is an actual fuel cell car we built. It's not working right now because we weren't able to charge it with sunlight, but if we were able to, there'd be hydrogen in the tank back here and it would run.
Yeah, so basically on that one is actually a small scale model of what we want to do in the Cerritos library, or our alternative energy source. And normally when we shine sunlight on it, it can actually start splitting the water into oxygen and hydrogen, and you actually see those gather up in the tanks. Now, since it's not always sunny, and then how do we get energy during the night? Well, that's when we actually take advantage of the hydrogen. So when we have the hydrogen, we can access it when there's no sunlight, and then that is what goes through the proton-electron membrane and produces the electricity. And we would actually be able to show you, because the motors can run off that. But in addition to hydrogen fuel cells and solar panels, there's other fuel alternatives, and such as nuclear power and wind power. And nuclear power, although it's widely touted and it generates a lot of energy, it's still not the most safe or efficient way to generate electricity because it creates toxic material that can remain for millions of years. And wind power just doesn't make sense in sunny, Southern California, where we don't get a lot of wind on a daily basis. So that's why we still believe that hydrogen fuel cells are the best alternative energy source for the Cerritos library.